This happened 8 months ago. I was aboard a research vessel, alone in the vast blue Pacific Ocean. I thought I was in a peaceful place, studying deep-sea creatures. It was just me and the sound of the waves during the day. I never imagined fear would find me here. One evening, I got ready for another dive. I geared up, excitement stirring within me. I descended in the submersible, the ocean engulfing me like a heavy blanket. At first, everything was calm. I could hear the machinery hum and the soft crackle of the radio. Then I heard a low, rhythmic thump. I paused, wondering if it was just the engine. But it didn't feel right. The next dives got stranger. The thumping grew louder, echoing in the small space. It felt like a heartbeat. I tried to ignore it, focusing on my work. My colleagues laughed off my concerns. Just sonar interference, they said. But I knew what I heard. It felt alive, almost as if it was watching me, waiting for something. One night, I was alone in the submersible, and the vibrations intensified. The metal shook around me, and panic surged through my veins. My heart raced. I gripped the controls, trying to calm myself. A dark, suffocating weight settled over me. I turned on the lights, scanning the dark water outside. It looked empty, but the footsteps continued in the deep. What was happening? I wanted to leave, but my crew had already gone to bed. I felt trapped. As I stared into the darkness, I saw a flicker in my light. Something moved, just a shadow. I couldn't tell if it was real or fear playing tricks on my mind. My instincts screamed that I was not alone. I finished the dive with shaky hands. Once back on deck, I tried to tell my team. They waved me off, their eyes distant. They didn't want to believe me. I stood at the edge, peering into the ocean. What secrets lay hidden below? I felt the weight of the unknown pulling at me. That night, I slept poorly. The footsteps haunted me, echoing in my mind. I thought about diving again, but chills crept over my skin. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for me in the depths. Then I heard it again, clearer this time. The call echoed inside my head. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, but deep down, I knew it was real. I was not alone anymore. As I turned to the dive hatch, a heavy pressure pressed against me, like something alive in the depths. I wanted to look, to find the source of that feeling. The shadows remained still, refusing to reveal anything. Maybe it was just my imagination, or maybe it was something else entirely. But in my gut, dread settled like a stone. I couldn't ignore it. I needed answers, but I feared what I might find. Perhaps the ocean was hiding more than just creatures. The next morning, I pretended everything was fine. The sun twinkled on the water surface, making it look inviting. My team gathered for breakfast, laughing and discussing dive plans. I forced a smile, but the thumping from the night lingered in my mind. I took a deep breath, pushing the discomfort down. After breakfast, I approached Dr. Ruiz, the team leader. Could we run some extra diagnostics on the submersible? I've been hearing some weird noises during the dives, I said, trying to keep my tone light. He studied me for a moment, eyebrows raised. You know how it is, Morgan. Underwater acoustics can be tricky. He chuckled, dismissing my concerns again. I felt frustration simmering beneath my skin. If only they could understand. Feeling restless, I decided to head back to the submersible alone. As I climbed aboard, I noticed a strange scratch on the outer hull, only visible from this angle. My heart skipped. I had checked it thoroughly before. How had it gotten there? I traced the mark with my finger. It felt jagged. That was when I heard it again, a low thump, rhythmic and steady, resonating from deep within the ocean. It sent a chill down my spine. I quickly turned to look over the edge. The ocean was still, a deceptive calm stretching as far as the eye could see. I hesitated. Should I dive again? I swallowed my fear and activated the sub. The console lit up, humming gently, but with every second, the thump grew louder, almost excited. It felt like it was calling me. I couldn't shake the power of that pull. It was as if whatever was down there wanted to connect. As I descended, the ocean swallowed the light. The blue hues faded into shadows, and the familiar vibrations took hold of me. I peered outside, scanning for movement. There was nothing but dark water. Each thump reverberated against the hull, sending adrenaline coursing through me. When I reached my usual depth, I paused. My heart raced, caught between curiosity and dread. Suddenly, the thumping shifted. It quickened, blending into an echoing pulse that resonated through my bones. Something was changing down there. In the flickering lights of the submersible, I caught sight of it, a dark shape. It loomed in the distance, flickering in and out of view. My breath caught in my throat, panic clawing at my mind. Was it real? Did my eyes deceive me? I wanted to turn back, but my hands refused to move. I was frozen, trapped by the unknown. Then it happened. The lights flickered, and the thumping turned into frantic banging, echoing all around me. The metal walls creaked under the pressure. I was surrounded, encased in darkness and fear. That was when I saw it, a massive shadow rising toward me, unfolding like a dark curtain. Everything went silent. The thumping ceased. A wave of dread washed over me. I realized then that I was not prepared for what waited in the abyss. Fear took hold as I faced the creature hidden in the dark, and it was then I understood that the ocean's secrets were more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. As the shadow loomed closer, I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. My heart banged against my ribcage, each beat drowning out the silence that had fallen over everything. I had expected fish, maybe a stray dolphin, not whatever this was. The darkness shifted, and suddenly, a flicker of bioluminescent light illuminated the creature, just for a moment. Its form twisted and elongated, almost serpentine. I stifled a scream, my thoughts racing. I needed to get out of here. I jerked my gaze back to the control panel. The depth gauge was alarming. I had gone deeper than I intended. The thump returned, low and thundering, vibrating through the metal. It was a warning, a reminder of how far I had strayed. I gripped the joystick tightly, fighting against the dizziness that threatened to overwhelm me. I was at the edge of my sanity, battling fear and technical issues in a confined space. I tried to recall the dive protocols: ascend slowly, keep calm, remain at a steady pace. I mustered every ounce of strength to push the submersible up, carefully easing it back toward the surface. But the hovering shadow seemed to sense my movement. The sudden rush of cold water trapped me in my seat as the creature darted, cutting through the depths with terrifying grace. One flick of its enormous tail sent a shockwave through the water, and I felt the submersible shudder. Panic surged, and I slammed the engines to full throttle, desperate to break free from my unseen stalker. The lights flickered again, casting fleeting shadows around the cockpit. I glanced back at the dark void, my mind racing for explanations. What was it? Was it an undiscovered species? Or something more sinister? The thumping grew desperate, almost like a heartbeat, matching my own racing pulse. The sonar pinged erratically, blasting alarms from the console. I quickly checked the readings but found nothing. The screen remained blank, devoid of anything, but I felt it creeping ever closer. Then, in the blurred light, I saw it, a massive eye, reflecting back at me. It was a predator's gaze, filled with an intelligence I couldn't comprehend. I fumbled with the controls, my fingers shaking. I had to get back to the surface. Without thinking, I yanked the levers, steering the submersible upward faster than I should have. As we shot toward the light, a deafening crash rattled the hull. I braced myself as the world spun. Just when I thought I might break the surface, everything went dark. The lights short-circuited, and the submersible was swallowed whole in chaos. I slapped the emergency lights button, but nothing worked. The ocean pressed in on all sides, and I was utterly alone. An echoing roar ruptured the silence, shaking the depths. The creature was angry. Maybe it was defending its territory, or worse, maybe it was coming for me. I couldn't tell what was coming next. All I knew was that my fight for survival had only just begun. Now, I had to face the creature and uncover the truth lurking in the shadows. I jolted awake. The darkness was thick, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. I blinked rapidly, trying to adjust my eyes to the dim light that barely seeped through the emergency lights, which glimmered weakly. The submersible was in complete chaos, and the controls were dead. My heart raced as I remembered the shadow and the roar that had shaken the hull. I reached for the emergency communication device. It crackled with static, but I pushed the button. "Control, can you hear me?" I shouted into the microphone, but the only response was silence. My pulse raced. I was cut off, trapped miles beneath the surface, with whatever that creature was lurking nearby. Dragging in a shaky breath, I checked the air gauge. It was low but still functional. I would have to get to the surface soon. But first I needed to see. I reached for the manual override for the lights, fingers trembling. A flicker followed, and for an instant, I caught sight of my surroundings. The cockpit was in disarray, tools scattered. Panic swelled again as I looked down. The water pressure had cracked a panel, and dark water seeped in. It didn't matter. I had to escape. I steadied myself, forcing down the terror threatening to take hold. I grabbed the joystick, trying to recall the calculations for depth ascension. Slowly, I began to maneuver the submersible upward, wincing at each jolt from the dying systems. But as I rose, a creeping horror sank back in. I couldn't hear it anymore. I glanced back into the void. The absence of sound filled me with dread. "It's gone," I told myself, my mind racing with the ridiculousness of that hope. But deep down, I could feel it, an uneasy presence lurking, waiting. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted in front of the submersible. What was that? I squinted against the light, and then I saw it, the massive shape slicing through the water, its sleek body illuminated by an iridescent glow. The creature had returned, drawn back to me by the light. A surge of fear clawed at my throat. I pressed the throttle harder, my shoulders tense. Just as we shot upward, a powerful thud rocked the submersible. I was thrown against my straps, gasping as I fought to regain control. The thumping was relentless now, each strike sending vibrations through the walls. I checked the depth gauge again. I could see the surface approaching, but then the lights flickered and went out again. The only illumination now was from the creature, a pulsating radiance that seemed to dance with each movement. I caught glimpses of it as it circled, studying me like I was the prey. Terror mixed with curiosity. In that moment, I noticed something glinting beneath the chaos. A small compartment in the console had opened, revealing a flash drive. Why was it there? I snatched it, noticing faint symbols engraved into the metal casing. They looked like coordinates. Without hesitation, I pocketed the drive. Whatever secrets it held might be crucial to understanding what I was dealing with. I readied myself for the struggle ahead. The submersible shook with a violent force. The creature had struck again. I wrestled with the controls, desperately trying to keep my course steady. Just as I felt the pressure easing, that lurking gaze seemed to penetrate my resolve. Something deep down told me that the real truth was still out there, far beyond the depths of the ocean, and that the encounter wasn't over. When I saw it breaking the surface, a shadow beneath me, larger and darker than before. The shadow loomed larger, an ominous silhouette stretching out beneath the murky surface. I felt my breath hitch in my throat as panic clawed at my insides. I had to get out. The surface was so close, yet this new threat made my heart pound in rhythm with the chaotic drumming of the submersible. As I resumed my desperate ascent, alarms blared, echoing in the confined space. I gritted my teeth and kept pushing the throttle, urging the dying vessel onward. Every jolt jarred my body, but I couldn't surrender to the pain. I just needed a moment, one fleeting moment to think clearly. That's when it struck me. The flash drive. My fingers fumbled as I pulled it from my pocket. With the creature circling me, was it possible the coordinates held some kind of answer? My mind raced back to all the research over the past 8 months. I had documented anomalies, strange sounds, shifting temperatures. But could this creature be tied to all of it? Right then, a shattering lurch shook the submersible, pulling me from my thoughts. I glanced around, but there was no time to reflect. I needed to adapt, or I wouldn't have the chance to even try to make sense of it all. I focused on the console, searching for any signs of life in the failing systems. The depth gauge moved. I was almost at the peak. But before I could feel any relief, something massive surged upward beneath me. It slapped against the hull, the ensuing impact dulling the lights and sending another tremor through the cockpit. I flung my eyes toward the window. The water swirled with an iridescent mist, the creature's silhouette shifting and fluctuating, like it was communicating something if not to me, then to the depths around us. What did it want? Did it sense my desperation? Desperate, I pulled the console toward me, trying to access the systems again. I had to send my last known position back to the surface. Maybe they could trace me. A flicker of hope broke through the fear, but it quickly dissipated. The controls fizzled and died in my hands, a cruel reminder of my isolation. The lights came back for a brief moment, illuminating a dark shape pressing against the glass. My heart nearly stopped. The creature's eye, a massive, unblinking expanse, bore into mine. It felt like eons passed in silence, both of us locked in that moment. Just as quickly, the lights faded, leaving me again in cold dark. I shook my head to clear the fog of fear clouding my thoughts. I had to pull myself together. I couldn't just sit here and wait for the end. I had to focus. As I blinked back the darkness, a new thought surged in. If its presence was linked to the data I had gathered, maybe it could help. Gripping the flash drive tighter, I cursed the darkness, not knowing if the storm above was raging, or if my help would come soon. Every second felt like eternity. Then a sudden shuddering noise broke my thoughts and I heard it, a low, rumbling growl that resonated through the walls. I looked back to where the creature had been moments before, but it was gone. The silence was palpable now. What had changed? I felt the water shift, pressure fluctuating around me. With newfound urgency, I prepared myself to investigate. Maybe there was an escape route. Perhaps, just perhaps, that creature was more than just a threat. When I saw the shimmering lights flickering in the distance, beckoning me towards the unknown. The shimmering lights danced like distant stars in a sea of night. Hope ignited in my chest as I plotted a course towards them. I couldn't be sure what they were, but anything was better than sitting here waiting to be consumed by the darkness. The submersible jolted again as I maneuvered, the hull protesting against the pressure of the water outside. I felt sweat trickling down my back, and the atmosphere buzzed under the weight of uncertainty. Each turn left me more vulnerable, each flicker of light drew me closer to discovery or disaster. With the dim console still flickering weakly, I worked to hold the sub stable. The proximity of the lights sent a rush of adrenaline through me. They pulsed and shifted, almost like they were alive. Was this part of my research? Or was I venturing into something entirely new? I wasn't sure, but I pressed on. As I approached the enigmatic glow, I noticed that it grew more defined, revealing a peculiar formation. It looked like a structure, ancient yet strangely familiar, a pile of rocks illuminated from within. My breath hitched in my throat again. Could this be the source of the anomalies I had charted? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed outside. The submersible shook violently and my hands flew to the control panel as I struggled to steady it. In that moment of chaos, the lights vanished. I was plunged back into the suffocating dark. Panic surged again, forcing me to take deep breaths. I couldn't lose focus. I had to find that structure. It was vital. As I steadied myself, I flicked switches and pressed buttons, hoping for a miracle. And then it happened. The lights burst back on, illuminating the jagged formation just inches from my window. It wasn't just rock. They were fragments of something broken, ruins encased in bioluminescent algae. I leaned closer, my heart racing with the implications. What civilization had built this? Was it even human? I switched on the submersible's small camera and began recording. I needed evidence of this, something to show the world above. As I captured the image, a shadow darted across the screen, almost too fast to see. I spun around, but nothing was there. The growl returned, louder this time, vibrating through the walls. My eyes darted back to the structure. The shimmering lights pulsed more vigorously now. Were they warning me? Or inviting me in? I felt a compelling urge to explore, to understand this place, but fear clawed at me tightly, and then, through the murkiness outside, I spotted it again. The creature was back, circling the submersible as if watching me. Its massive eye caught the light, reflecting it like a mirror. What did it want from me? With a shaky hand I reached for the flash drive, the coordinates I had worked so hard to collect. Maybe the key to understanding it all lay within. Before I could think too much about it, I pressed the button to transmit the data to the surface. As I waited for a response, I glanced back outside. The creature hovered near the ruins, its form growing dimmer as the lights from the structure flared. Then, unexpectedly, it shifted, revealing what was buried beneath the stones. There, amid the wreckage, was a glowing object, something that looked eerily familiar. My heart raced as realization struck. I recognized that shape from my research, from the paranoia that had slowly seeped into my mind during those endless hours spent studying the depths. What was this connection? Suddenly, everything felt like it had escalated too fast. I needed answers, but I had no idea if they would lead me to salvation or deeper troubles. I felt my hands tremble as I stared at the glowing object. It was definitely not a part of the natural landscape. It resembled what I had seen in fragmented ancient text artifacts from a lost civilization that had vanished without a trace. The realization sunk deeper than the ocean around me. What had I stumbled into? The creature outside twisted again, its outlines shifting in and out of view. I couldn't discern its intentions, but the weight of its presence felt menacing. My instincts screamed at me to retreat, to leave this place while I still could, but curiosity pinned me down. I wanted to know what that object was and what secrets it held. Then I remembered the camera still rolling. I needed to capture everything. I pointed it at the glowing artifact but tried to keep an eye on the creature. As I focused, I noticed something strange. The closer I got to the ruins, the more erratic the creature became. It swirled around the submersible, almost like it was trying to defend something. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, the words barely audible over the growl echoing through the hull. I focused on the readings on my console. Depth, pressure, and temperature were normal for now, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. I reached for the controls to maneuver the submersible closer to the light. I had to see it up close. As I gently approached, the creature paused, hovering just beyond the reach of the bioluminescent glow. It watched me with that single enormous eye, as if weighing my next move, but just as I was about to examine the artifact, my console flickered violently. The lights dimmed again, and all screens went dark. Panic flared anew within me, and I slammed my fist against the panel. Not again! I felt the submersible lurch. My heart raced as I frantically pressed buttons, hoping to reset the system. I could hear the growl amplifying, vibrating through me. The creature was not just watching anymore. It was moving closer, and this time, I could feel a surge of energy that chilled me to the bone. My gaze darted back to the outside just in time to catch a glimpse of shifting shadows amongst the ruins. The lights from the structure flickered erratically, struggling against the encroaching darkness. Then I saw it again, a flash of what looked like more artifacts buried alongside the glowing one. Perhaps relics of a vanished civilization yet unknown to me. But that wasn't all. In the chaos of the shadows, something much larger loomed. Fear gripped my insides as the creature re-emerged into the light, and it wasn't alone. Another figure joined it, dark and massive, moving with an unnatural grace in the water. "Get away! Get away!" I shouted, but there was no one to hear me. My fingers fumbled over the controls. I had to get out of here. Everything about this felt wrong. The mystery that pulled me in now threatened my very life. And then, just as I prepared to fire the submersible's emergency ascent, a voice crackled through the radio, barely breaking through the tension. "We're receiving their data. What is happening down there? I can't hold on!" I yelled. Before I could respond further, the lights flickered one last time before everything went dark. I was plunged into silence, the kind that felt suffocating. No lights, no readings. Just the cold metal of the submersible around me, and the gnawing dread that something was watching. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I fumbled to reset the systems. Nothing responded. Panic clawed at my throat. This can't be happening. I reached for the manual overrides, hoping to get a faint light back, anything to cut through the gloom, Then I heard it, the creature outside, a low hum, almost like a song echoing through the water. It changed now, moving away from me, as if drawn to some other pull. My breath caught. What were they doing? I needed to see. I grabbed the emergency flashlight Julienne, my thick-bellied assistant, always called it. With a few shaky clicks of the switch, a narrow beam flickered to life, illuminating the dim cabin. I swung it towards the viewport, praying to glimpse something meaningful. Suddenly, there it was. The glowing artifact, pulsing softly, bathed in an eerie blue light even from inside my submersible. And beside it, the second creature, a silhouette like nothing I'd ever seen. It towered over the first, its body an amalgamation of angles and darkness, moving deliberately, as if the water was nothing but air. My breath caught. What are you? I whispered, half expecting the creature to hear me. It pivoted, a dark eye fixing on me through the glass. For a moment I thought it might charge. But instead, it relented, retreating back into the dark. The radio crackled again, the voice a lifeline. Status report. Do you copy? I'm here. I shouted too loudly, startling myself. I'm losing power. I haven't. I gulped down panic. I can see the artifact, but there are two creatures. There, but my voice failed me as the lights flickered back to life, illuminating my console. The readings were partly restored, but the stability was still shaky. I quickly glanced at the depth gauge. My submersible had plummeted far deeper than we had intended. I had to get out. I couldn't afford to stay down here, not with whatever was lurking in the dark. As I prepared to initiate the ascent, a sudden burst of energy rocked the submersible, sending me slamming against the control panel. Alarms blared, warning bells chimed. This is not good. This is not good. I gasped, forcing my fingers to steady against the controls. I tried to regain control, but it felt like the ocean itself was laughing at me, tired of my intrusion. When I saw it, the glowing artifact pulsated wildly, sending a shockwave that reverberated through the very walls of my fragile refuge. I felt it claw at my mind, urging me closer. There was something buried deep within it, something calling to me, and then I heard a roar, primal and fierce, slicing through the water. My stomach twisted. It was coming for me. I had to go now, or I would be swallowed by more than just the ocean. Prepare for ascent. I shouted into the radio, hoping they heard me above the chaos. I activated the emergency ascent thrusters and felt the sudden jerk as the submersible lurched upwards. But as I began to move, light exploded around me. The bioluminescent glow from the artifact blazed a furious blue, illuminating the vast darkness. And surrounding it, shadows twisted and coiled in a violent dance. As I shot up towards the surface, I realized this wasn't over. I was being hunted, and whatever danger lurked beneath had just begun to reveal itself. The ascent felt endless. I gripped the controls tightly, sweat pooling at my palms. The alarms were a cacophony, drowning out my thoughts, blaring warnings that I wasn't sure I could handle. I focused on the depth gauge again this time. It was moving up, but so slowly. Every second felt like a heartbeat that thudded in my chest, punctuated by the unknown lurking below. I stole a glance out the viewport. The glowing artifact was still radiating light, but it seemed almost brighter now, vibrating with a rhythmic energy that felt hazardous. Then came the sound, a series of thuds against the hull, an echoing rhythm that matched my frantic heartbeat. It was coming from below, that creature or whatever it was. Panic gripped me again. My body was screaming for escape, but my mind was fascinated by the artifact's glow, and the seemingly sentient creature that lingered nearby. Come on, come on! I muttered to myself. The submersible groaned, metal creaking with the strain of the ascent. The radio crackled again, the voice of my team a lifeline in the chaos. Hold tight. We're trying to get a stabilizer to you. Too late. I yelled back, desperation leaking into my tone. Something's coming. And just like that, I realized, the instability wasn't just from the depths. It was something actively pulling me down, an unseen force at work. My instincts screamed to turn around and head into the darkness, but the thought of returning was paralyzing. Another heavy thud resonated, harsher this time. I felt it in my bones, and a vein of fear shot through me. Was it the creature trying to breach through? I forced my eyes back to the controls. I had to stabilize this thing somehow. I hit a button for manual controls, attempting to override the automatic ascent. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, plunging me into another moment of darkness. My heart raced, and I felt disoriented, as if the submersible was spinning in the ocean's embrace. My instincts screamed to pull back, but I didn't have the luxury of uncertainty. Mustering every ounce of will, I fought against the control panic. Just then, a new wave of light surged outside the viewport. The artifact pulsed with an intense brilliance, illuminating my surroundings. The water shimmered with color. Shapes danced in the sea around me, quickly revealing themselves more creatures, just as dark and amorphous as the first thought I felt their presence, a collective consciousness that seemed to be studying me. It was as if they were drawn to the artifact or, worse, me. Status. My voice crackled through the radio, fear puncturing each syllable. I half expected no reply, but the urgency in my tone strangled my hope. Get out of there. We're diverting a fast boat. Before I could respond, an eruption shook the submersible again, rocking it violently side to side. A howling roar pierced from the depths, drowning out my thoughts. My vision blurred, and I felt the walls closing in. Another thud sealed my fate. The creatures were all around me now. I could see their shapes, their eyes glinting with a haunting intelligence that I gasped, the breath caught in my throat. It was then my eyes fixed on the artifact. Inside, shimmering shadows danced with something more recognizable, a face looking back at me. It twisted in agony or ecstasy. I couldn't tell, and just like that, everything went dark. I jolted awake, the rhythmic thump still echoing in my head but now muted, softened by a distant calm. I was no longer in the submersible. Somehow, I had made it back to the deck of the research vessel, the salty air brushing against my skin. The bright sunlight stung my eyes, flickering like a bad dream I couldn't shake. I blinked against its intensity, trying to grasp the disjointed memories of the wreckage below. Around me, my crew moved about, a series of normal conversations blending together like waves lapping against the shore. I pushed to my feet, unsure of how long I had been out. The dread settled into my stomach, a knot that wouldn't loosen. What happened? The dive, the creature? My voice felt foreign, the panic bubbling beneath the surface. Dr. Rees approached, brow furrowed with concern. Morgan, you were out for hours. We thought we lost you. You were only supposed to do a quick dive. His tone slipped from concern to reprimand, and I felt my heart thud in response. I saw something. I heard it, I insisted, glancing around for anyone to corroborate my frantic claims. The crew exchanged tired looks, their brows furrowed in disbelief. The creature, it was massive and alive. But the urgency in my voice hung like stale air in the hot sun. It's just ocean acoustics, you know? One of my colleagues said, sipping coffee as if I were a child with an imaginary friend. Nothing lives down there as hostile as you think. But I knew what I saw or felt. The tension of that enormous eye pressed against my memories, demanding to be understood. I turned and found the ocean stretching before me, deceptively still, a vast expanse hiding myriad secrets. What had drawn me back up? Did I escape the creature, or was I pulled to safety by something beyond my comprehension? Dr. Rees placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder, but I felt cold and distant. Let us go over what happened when you dived again, he suggested gently. We moved toward the cabin, but my heart stuck in my throat. I wasn't ready to relive that descent. I found something, I blurted, reaching into my pocket for the flash drive I had taken before everything went dark. It holds coordinates. We need to study them. My fingers trembled as I pulled it free, determined to piece together the events that shattered my understanding of reality. What coordinates? He asked, glancing skeptically. Tension coiled between us, proof of my desperation evident in the way I held the drive closer to my chest. The ruins, I saw artifacts. Glowing things buried, it's tied to some civilization. I was pleading now, the urgency in my voice rising with every word. I had to make him understand. Dr. Ruiz's expression shifted, a flicker of intrigue overcoming his skepticism. We can look into that, but there's no need to jump to conclusions. I think you need some rest first. He held a firm grip, almost protective, insisting I take care of myself before pursuing this slide toward insanity, but I wouldn't rest. I couldn't. The thumping penetrated my consciousness again, as if calling from the depths inside my mind, rippling beneath the skin of reality. Were they still out there? Doubts filled my thoughts as I recalled the shifting forms and chaotic shadows. Had I only dreamt it all up in a fever of panic? I stepped toward the railing, feeling the ocean breeze tousle my hair, the sunlight sparkling on the surface like diamonds. My gaze lowered, searching where darkness met light. I would find out if the tales were true, if the ocean concealed something far greater than I could understand. Because even now, in this moment of seeming rescue, questions lingered like a fog, tightening around my throat. What were the artifacts? What truly dwelled in the darkness? And could I trust my own mind about what I felt, what I believed? I moved closer to the edge, peering into the swirling waters below. Parts of me wanted to retreat, but a deeper part urged me toward the unknown. As I stood there, I felt a presence beneath the waves, deep and ancient, whispering secrets lost to time. I turned back to the crew as a pulse echoed through me, a haunting reminder that this journey was far from over. The ocean, suddenly vast and full of uncertainty, held its mysteries close, and I would never truly be at peace until I understood both the darkness within and what lurked just beneath the surface. I still think about that dive sometimes, how easily we shift from wonder to terror in places untouched by light. But mostly I try to forget. For sometimes the questions we ask lead us deeper into waters that we might never resurface from.